My mom was a nurse, practical nurse. She studied at the Misericordia. I can't remember what kind of degree that yielded, but she was always on about eating healthy. And in our house, we never were allowed to have Coke and never allowed to have white bread. And so I'd go over to my friend's place and they were serving white bread and Coke like you wouldn't believe. And I go, this is great, you know, have my hit and then go home and drink 7-Up. And that sounds trivial, but actually it planted, I'd ask her why. Why are we eating this kind of lumpy bread full of seeds and things? And she was, 30 years ahead of her time. And she used to make our bread for us. And it's kind of, I think one of the world's oldest hippies, my mother. But, she said it's just better for you. And I can't tell you why, Ian, but it's just better for you. I know it's better for you. Because this is what my parents taught me. They're from Germany. They moved here. Or actually, they're from Austria. And so that's how they ate. And they couldn't tell you why, but I feel better. My grandfather used to say, I just feel better. And you will too, buddy. It was like that. And my dad was a more strictly trained scientist. He was a wildlife biologist. So he was the kind of guy that, he was so into his field of work that even a drive home after school, we would take every time we would go off and look for songbirds or, he'd spot a plant. Oh, those are out early. And he would give talking about some shrub. I'm really bad at the Latin names, but he could just let them fly off the top of his tongue. And he was a really good practical biologist. He was one of the best, I think. And so he worked for the federal government and the provincial government for the course of 35 years. And he showed me scientific method and said, I'd say, why are you always writing in your book? Even if he was off duty. He wasn't working, but he would note things and consolidate his thoughts. He said, Ian, thinking is, what I can do if I have a clear day at home in an hour, what might take me a week at work because the phone's ringing, etc. He called it flying the desk. He hated flying the desk. So he was a very practical biologist. And so for those reasons, I got into science, the combination. And I did go into biomedical. I started off in zoology, and I love zoology still, but I'm going to treat that like a holiday. So if and when I do retire, I'll go back to that. Well, I have the German-Austrian side of me too. All of my uncles and my grandfather, they're all engineers or farmers. The two fields just mixed. And that was another cool thing. I spent a lot of time in what was my grandfather's machine shop, just watching him make parts. Something would break in harvest time, and they'd need a big part that if you called down to the States, it would take a week to ship up. So he'd just make them. He'd go buy the billet steel or whatever it was that he needed and just machine it up. And I love that.